All right, everybody. Welcome to the Minority in Cybersecurity April. That's this month, right? April community call. And thank you guys for joining us today. Really appreciate that. And so I'm looking forward to this conversation. But as you know, we go through our little community call agenda. This is our agenda. And our speakers will introduce them and we'll do the panel discussion. So we'll go through that. Our leadership quote of the month, and I've been practicing. I just read this book recently, and you guys know from previous calls that whatever comes up, and I got to thinking about some things in regards to my career and thinking about those folks that have been advocates in my career, and thinking about those that have obviously or unfortunately haven't been advocates in my career. And one of my first bosses, a male boss, I say he's the reason why I have this organization today, because he's the one that said that it was my responsibility to be out there and stay out there. So I've been reading a lot of different things, and we should all be feminists, and I've been practicing, and I had to practice her name to get it right, Shimamandu Ngozi Adichie. I think I got that right. I was practicing for 15 minutes, but this is, of course, her TED Talk, and it's a short little read, but, she says in that, my own definition is a feminist is a man or woman who says, yes, there's a problem with gender as it is today, and we must fix it. We must do better. All of us, women and men, must do better. So I really enjoyed that quote, and that's our quote for the month, and we'll get into our conversation a little bit later. But for those that are new to our community calls and are not members, we have a membership drive going on right now through April 30th. You can get $100 off your professional membership, $50 off nonprofit, $10 off students. So, those membership pricing comes out to that. And of course, we have corporate memberships available starting at that $3,000 mark. So if you need any additional information about corporate memberships, just let me know. Forums and job updates. So as everybody knows that our members, we have our forum discussions on our platform when we have an issue or after these calls and things like that. And I actually wanted to talk about this a little bit because what happened is we posted a job from Coinbase earlier in the week or last week. I can't remember, my days and weeks are running together, but inside the forum, one of our members was talking about the Coinbase having a lot of issues in regards to Black employees as well as women being not paid, pay equality for women. And if you can mute, I would appreciate that. But pay equality was an issue. So there were a couple New York Times articles about Coinbase that this person was bringing to my attention that I didn't really even know about. And so I reached out to him, and I reached out to the person that actually posted the job, and I said, hey, I appreciate you guys paying to post a job on our site. However, I had some members that actually have some questions about what it is that you guys are doing and what changes have you made based on these articles that came out. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. You can go out there and see them yourself. We don't have to repeat some of the things that were said in that. But let's just say it wasn't flattering about Coinbase. And so they actually reached back out to me, and I had a call with them yesterday. And we all have to, admit when we make mistakes and then try to learn from those and grow from those. And they had about 4 representatives on the phone, and they talked about what they were doing in the space, how they were doing it in the space, and the things that they were trying to change the perception and to get out there to let the minority and women community know that they recognize that they may have had some problems in the past, but they're doing better. And one of the things, and the reason why I'm talking about this is one of the things that they said, which is one of the arguments that I make about pay inequality, is I know and you know and anybody that works in corporate America knows that there's a salary range for each level that exists in a corporation, from entry level all the way to CEO. And there's a range. There's a range of salary that they pay, and that is something that's known by HR. And the reason why women at times, aren't paid as much is because they don't ask for what's in that range. And then HR professionals will say, hey, well, we can get this person cheaply because they didn't ask for what's in this range, where, I argue for turning that around and saying, okay, this is what we're paying. I mean, why is it up to the candidate to know the right number to ask and not for the company to just put it out there and say, this is what we actually are offering and whether or not it fits. And that's what, if you actually have that attitude, then, you'll have equality in pay in that regard. And so Coinbase is taking that step where, they're basically saying this is our salary range for this particular role. If a person is qualified, or we're not going to hire anybody that's not qualified to fit in this role, this is what we're going to pay them. So I like that model, and not putting the burden on the candidate, but actually, saying as a company, this is where we stand. So Coinbase did post a role out there. Go out there, see if you are actually qualified if you're interested. It is remote, which is a lot of stuff that's coming out right now. So if interested, please apply. And if you have any questions, you can definitely always reach out to me. I have the ear of the recruiters and everything like that for them. So, all right. So here's what Mary came up with today, right? And I like this T-shirt, and I think I should buy one for my son. Real men are feminists. And we're going to have a conversation with our panel today about, and ask them some questions and go through some questions about being an advocate or an advocate for women, and some of the challenges that may come with, and some of the reasons why it's just a non-negotiable for them. So here are our speakers. And I will allow them the opportunity to introduce themselves so I can stop talking. And we'll start with Ashwin. You go ahead and introduce yourself, dear.
Hey, Mary. Glad to be on this panel. So I am, as you can see over here, a host, podcaster, author, speaker. I work for a small cybersecurity training and services organization called Secure Dynamics. I spend, I'd say, about 90% of my waking hours in conversations with chief information security officers, chief privacy officers, heads of security. And a lot of this is truly to kind of get the human behind the title. So we definitely talk about things like ransomware and supply chain, all of that, but it's also to uncover the why behind the person over there. So that's in terms of background, I've been doing this for 2 years. Before that, in my prior life, I was on the vendor side of the house, selling stuff that I did not believe in, bashing the competition without having any idea why I'm doing that. So again, this is my 2 years of remorse to wipe away the past sins. I'll stop there.
Okay, Munish.
Hey everyone, my name is Munish, Walther-Puri.
Oh, there you go.
Yep, you got me? Okay, cool. My name is Munish Walther-Puri, and I am here in my personal capacity. I work for a city, as you can see, and I'm the director of cyber risk, but I consider myself a security risk intelligence professional. I started my career in nuclear policy and nonproliferation, and then worked in geopolitical risk and consulting and at startups and kind of all over, but very much a misfit and I still feel like I miss it today, which I now think was a good thing, because that's what I think we all need. I'll say two things that are important to me. The first is that, particularly in cybersecurity, there's a approach around thinking like an adversary. And what I will say is our adversaries, our collective adversaries, there's a really good chance they don't discriminate nearly as much as we do. Right? That's as simple as I can put it. We invest so much in trying to match them in tools and tactics and data and just arms race, trying to get as fast as we can. And then on this one thing, we're like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get the best people on the field. I'm not going to get the smartest folks. And I can pretty much guarantee that they're not stopping doing that. Imagine if we did that in any other category. If we're like, no, we're not going to get the best tooling. No, we're not going to try and use data and analytics. No. It's not the way we did things before. So that's lots of people's support and wisdom in my own journey in getting better at doing this and getting better at being a professional. And so, and I mean that in all senses of the word. So that's how I think about this. Like, this is a community, and we help each other, and we have to help each other. Otherwise, like, what are we actually doing? You know what I mean? Like, we're just doing jobs. Mm-hmm. So that's the way I think about it. And I love opportunities to pay it forward and share experience, and also have candid conversations about what I didn't do well and what I learned from that. So I'm really looking forward to this. Thanks for the opportunity, Mary.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks for joining. And Ken, my buddy.
Yeah, so for those that don't know me, Ken Underhill, VP of Curriculum Development and Instruction for a company called Elysian Global, and also executive producer, owner, all that good stuff of the Cyber Life TV show. So that should be coming out sometime in 2021. We've had a lot of delays with the pandemic and everything. I've mentored hundreds of thousands of people, thousands and thousands of women globally, and I'm on here number one because I stalk Mary on social media quite a bit, and number two because for me it's just a normal thing to do to treat people equally, and it's still just shocking to me even in my old age that people will still judge based off of race or sex or whatever, belief systems, whatever. And I'm not idealistic. I know the world is the world, but it just the more we can bring more awareness, maybe we could change a few things here and there.
Well, thank you guys for introducing yourselves to the group. I really appreciate that. And so we're gonna dive into the discussion because what drew me down this path, or what took me down this path, is I recently made a decision professionally about where I wanted to go next, and started to reflect on the past, started to reflect on exactly what I need to do to get where I want to go, and started looking at some of the challenges that I've had up until this point with my career. And, going forward, what that may look like. I mean, and I've had some really dynamic men in my life that, some one that I actually worked for, but some that are just really and truly advocates. So I'm going to throw this out to Ken first, since you're on my screen. What makes you such an ardent supporter of women in STEM, STEAM, or cybersecurity, whichever way you want to go? What makes you want to be that way for women in this space? Because it's, stereotypically speaking, that's not the case.
Yeah, well, we all know stereotypically I'm probably the only one on the call that I can see that is matching the typical of what we would think of. No, I mean, it's weird because I get a lot of questions around like, what was the defining moment? You know, like what made you, I'm like, I've always been this way. I was a little kid, you know, running around just playing with everybody, not caring. So for me, it's just when you hear some of the stories and the experiences that women, especially in the tech industry, have had to go through, and you're just like, that's just so wrong, right? And so for me, you know, the driving factor, I guess, in my later years here of old age, and guys can guess my age, I'm not going to tell you, but I think the driving factor is just that we're not there yet, right? We still have all of these issues. We still have, I mean, I have women reach out to me on LinkedIn telling me how they're sexually harassed in job interviews, you know, and these are major tech companies that it's still going on. So if they can't figure it out, how's a small company going to figure it out? And I think that the other thing we need to keep in mind is, especially in cybersecurity, we need diversity of people, of course, but also diversity of thought. And a lot of times, many of the women I interact with and have mentored over the years, they think of a problem a totally different way that has the best solution. And I never, no matter how many books I read, I never would have thought of it that way. So I think the driving factor for me is that we need women, we need diversity, and you know, we just need to make sure that we do it the right way and we don't just harass people or whatever to get there. You know, we don't need to bring a bunch of women in industry and then sexually harass them so they go elsewhere. Let's treat people equally and go forward from there.
Well, thank you for sharing. How about you, Ashwin?
So I'm going to share something with you on chat. Feel free to bring it up if you want. So this, unlike Ken, I did have a defining moment. And it was, I think it was a couple of years ago, if I remember right. I think I shared this with you many earlier, right? So this was, I still remember that it was 5 or 5:15, or the days when I used to commute back. And this was a friend of mine who was looking for funding from a VC, and I happened to know the VC, so he was doing a blind reference check. So it was, the call was scheduled for 5:15. I was just about to get in my car, and I said, "This is my half an hour drive back home. I can do a reference check." So there were two people on the call. There was a man and a woman who were supposed to be there. The man was the guy that I knew. At about, I think, 5 minutes before, I get a text from him saying, "Hey, he has something that came up that he can't make it, and instead he's going to have the woman be on the call." I'm not telling the names for obvious reasons. My first thought when I saw that text was, oh man, why am I talking to a low-grade woman in the VC? Why am I not talking to the partner? And then I held myself back, right? I said, okay, so already I could see the bias setting in, which is VC, male-dominated, man not showing up, woman showing up, therefore I'm talking to somebody who is way low in the totem pole. And something made me actually look her up on LinkedIn, and I saw she was a full-fledged partner. And time was already up, so I had to actually do the reference. But I was in a little bit of turmoil when I was actually doing the reference check. And I got back home and I said, okay, I can either pretend this never happened, try and just make myself aware that this happened and hopefully become a better person, or I can, you know what, I'm going to throw it out there because it's not just about me. There could be hundreds of other people out there who are confronted with this but choose not to admit it. So that's what I posted over there, right, which many are sharing. And interestingly, statistically, I went back and looked at it, and this part is stunning for me, right? You can see that I think this was 70 or 80 likes. The comments is the one that got to me, right? Of the 10 or so people who've commented, 9 of them are women, and there's one man who commented on that. And I looked at the likes at about 50%, right? So 50% men, 50% women, which that's good. At least men are coming out and saying, hey, this is something that resonated with them. But why aren't men commenting? Is this not something that you confront with on a daily basis? So for me, that part is still troubling because I'm pretty sure everybody has biases they encounter, but the question is, like, what do you do with it, and how do you improve, right? So for me, this was definitely one of those wake-up calls to say, okay, I am biased. I don't know, I can call it unconscious bias, but it doesn't matter, it's still bias. And therefore, how does this manifest itself in my day-to-day routine, right? So it kind of became this, like I said, it's still so vivid in my memory that I want to kind of bring it up out here. But also, I think the reason for the post was to say, this is not something I'm definitely ashamed of it, but it's not something that I should keep to myself. I should share with the larger community. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for sharing. And so, Munish, you wanna jump in here and give us your opinions about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, Ashwin, I appreciate that a lot because I think we'll talk about this more. But how do you confront your own bias when it shows up? First of all, do you have the capabilities to recognize it? That's actually the first thing. And then the second is, what do you do in that moment? And then what do you do after? So I've gone through a similar kind of process. But for me, it's a little bit between these two. It's been over time. I mean, I was raised by strong women, and that I think is in my DNA. But professionally, it happened at various stages. I talked a little bit about, this adversarial mindset and having that approach. I think when I really started to get deep into intelligence analysis and bias minimization, intellectual cognitive bias minimization, it was very clear, like groupthink. That was the easiest one to be like, how do I counter groupthink? Oh, I just need to have a heterogeneous group of people. Simple. A lot harder to execute. Simple but not easy. And so that was one. I want to be a better intelligence or risk analyst. I need to counter cognitive bias this way. So like I've just started trying to push that on a bunch of different ways. Another element was around understanding intersectionality. As a person of color, but cisgender straight male, I hold a lot of privilege, and in conversations with people that were close in my life who were other parts of that privilege matrix, so to speak. So gay white women, right? There was a component, or others, so not in professional life. I saw the power of that intersectionality, and when I asked myself, as when I was the minority, what did I want the other group to do? I could answer my own question, because I could switch and be like, well, what happens when I'm part of the larger group? Like, what do I have at my disposal? What can I? And so that really empowered me on both sides, really, to do that red team and blue team, if you will. Like, really, how do I make that switch? And that sort of came together. I talked about the community, and this community being really valuable. I have both male and female mentors, and it wasn't until and then there's been a lot of research recently that has really backed it from a data-driven perspective. Better outcomes with women on boards. Women are better in crises. Like, we can just keep going, but that research has backed up what we've known, but now we have from anecdotal to empirical, which is really powerful. I think that has helped. The Me Too movement and moment, I think, was important for a conversation about power, and not just the patriarchy, but like heteronormative conditions and other things like that, because people assumed that it was just about men and women. But we saw, like, Terry Crews came forward and was like, hey, this is what's going on with me. So it really challenged people's notions of ideas of power. And then personally, as I started to manage teams and build teams and start to really be a leader and think of myself as a leader, it was clear to me that walk the walk was an everyday thing. It was like going to the gym. Like, if I did it today, great. I have to do it again tomorrow. If I want to say that I'm doing this. Otherwise, it's just like a hobby, or like a thing it's like a New Year's resolution. It's like a thing you do periodically and perennially, and then you're sort of like, okay, I'm going to do it. Like, International Women's Day comes around, or, Women's History Month, and then it's a perennial thing where everyone's like, okay, let's do it then. And one year my goal was like to do something every month except that month. You know what I mean? Like, just do it. I mean, I was going to do it that month, but it was just like, do it all the other times. Like, do it in November, So anyway, there are a couple things. It's been evolutionary, but there's been, things that have given me pushes and momentum and all of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you the woman side of this before I prompt this question. So for when we talk to the girls, the women, one of the conversations I've had recently was this whole thought about all of these things that continue to come out in the news about women being sexually harassed in the workplace. Or, we did a talk about unwanted attention in professional spaces. And the thought process for a woman's perspective, from my perspective, I'll own up to my perspective, is why are we talking about anything beyond the project, the spreadsheet, the email, Word document? Why are we having these conversations, or why are we still in the workplace? Why don't men get treated or get asked to behave in a professional capacity at every point in time? So the question that I want to ask you guys and to expound on a little bit is, have you ever been witness to a woman being treated in a way that made you uncomfortable, that you felt the need to come and say anything to anybody about that behavior? Because I know that I've had men come to me after, or they've confessed, or they said something to me after the fact of, oh, that was inappropriate. But have you ever taken that next step to confront the actual person that's doing this? I would love to hear any scenarios that you guys may have. And Munish, since you're on my screen, you go ahead and you can start.
Yeah. So there's a few things there. It's a little tricky sometimes because not to speak out. So my personal approach is to always speak up. That's mine. Just generally, like, I'm a verbal person. I talk a lot too much quite often. So my first instinct is to be like, oh, let me say something. And actually I'm kind of enabling or continuing, or I'm disenfranchising the person who's there. So what I've tried to do is do two things. One, go and validate that the reason that person says it, that the reason I think that person is disenfranchised is the reason that they think that they're disenfranchised, right? Not assume that. I've made that mistake a few times. Like, oh, it's probably this. And that ends up being parochial in its own way. So that's the first thing. The second is dual track official and unofficial channels. So, sometimes someone needs the encouragement to, like, yeah, you should go talk to EEO. You should go talk to them. I will also go do this. I will also go do that, or go talk to people, whatever, but you should go do that. Because it's a really unfortunate thing, and people do this all the time. You'll see it in the media. Why didn't they report it? Right? Why didn't they report it? I watched Bombshell recently, if you've seen that movie about Fox News, and there was the same thing. It's like, why didn't you report it? And so it's like setting that floor. Okay, I did that thing, and then you can also demonstrate that process doesn't work, because sometimes it's not about fixing the problem, it's about fixing the process. But to be personal about the circumstance, so this person came to me, and what I realized was the most important thing I could do, instead of go advocate to that person, because I could do that, is to support them in this journey. It frankly took a lot more patience from me, because I just wanted to go. I knew who to go to. I kind of knew what to say. I knew that they'd listen to me. It was a really interesting moment. But I reached out to some mentors to talk about the situation, actually. Be like, here's what I think I should do. A few of them were like, okay, what do you think is going to happen then? What is that person going to learn? In a good way. Like, what are you going to give them? They're going to go do that thing, and then what has changed? And what happens when you're not there? And what are they going to do in their next job? And I was like, damn it. Like, I wasn't thinking broadly and long enough. So it took more patience. It took more effort. But it also felt like a more meaningful change. So when that person got their voice heard, I could have their back. And when they ran into problems that I could support, I didn't try and go out ahead of them. I was right there next to them. So that was a personal learning for me about how to be an ally in certain situations. It doesn't mean you take the con and run ahead, actually, because your voice is louder or could be louder or could be heard differently. That's the temptation. So that's what it was like for me.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I have that too. I'm that protector too. I want to battle. That's genetic, and I have the proof. But go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, so I guess I'll share two different examples. First being a sexual harassment one, secondary being just around a presentation. So first example, one of the company owners came up to one of the women I worked with and basically, you have a boyfriend still, blah, blah, typical stuff that is completely inappropriate. And it was a cubicle back when we had cubicles. So my cubicle was right near the printer. So I just stood up, I walked over to the printer, I was like, this is inappropriate. So long story short, they put the target on my back, and long story short. But I spoke up, she thanked me for it, because nobody around there had spoken up for her at that company. She left maybe 6 months after that, but it was the first time someone actually stepped in. So in my opinion, if it's something around sexual harassment, something like that, you need to speak up or you need to go to HR or go through the channels. I don't think you should be patting someone on the back saying, well, let me kind of coach you through to the next. No, some people just need to learn the lesson in the way that we have it set up. The secondary part was this has happened multiple times, but a woman was given a presentation. The group, it was a mixture, but let's just call it about 90% male, and vast majority of the men in the room were not paying attention, checking their phones, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't stop the presentation. I let her go through, but I would ask questions that would force other people in the room to have to interact instead of them checking their phones, et cetera. And then after the fact, she left the room, and I made everyone stay behind and brought it up and said, look, whether or not she's offended, right, by your behavior and by you kind of checking your phone and stuff like that, I say, in my situation, if I was up there presenting and everyone's checking their phones, I'm going to immediately say, well, either they don't care about the topic, whatever it is, or I'm not a good presenter, I suck, maybe I'm not good at it. I'm going to have all these thoughts going through my head. And you might say, well, I'm checking my email because it's very important, but I don't know that, right, as a presenter. So in that situation, I just kind of made it less about the person presenting, because I didn't know, right? I didn't go ask her, like, hey, how do you feel? But for me, I said, well, if I was up there, this is the way I would have felt, and just gave them a different perspective on it. And I didn't see at that organization, I didn't see issues, at least in the meetings I was in. I don't know if they had a meeting beforehand or not to say, wait a minute, he's coming. But I didn't see that issue further in that organization with women when they did presentations. So I look at that as a win.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Ashwin, you have anything you want to add to the conversation about this? Have you ever been witness to this stuff?
So I was racking my brain, right? And it was probably, so there are two sides to it. One is I can easily say I've heard so many stories over the last 2 years because I talked to so many people, and then I dial back to the 18 plus years on the other side, and there are very few that I can think of. So obviously, either I was ignoring it, which is probably likely the case. Again, going back to 8, it can't be that 18 years I haven't seen anything. Just like, hey, I chose to ignore it and or did not see it when it was happening. So that's now, coming back to the last 2 years in terms of conversations, some of the things that I've heard are stunning. Like one was a conversation that I was having with two of my guests, and one of them was telling me the story about how she was in France, and there was a big project that was going to get assigned. And the CEO actually walks up to her and says, you just recently got married. Are you going to get pregnant in the next 2 years? And so what she was thinking of is, this is Europe, and he just asked her whatever came to his head, and she was saying, hey, there's lots of politically correct situations where people won't ask you that, but they're thinking about it, right? And she never got the project because what if she needs to take a leave of pregnancy, and then the project needs to get handed off to somebody else. So that was one. The other one that actually stuck in my head, again, this was again of my guest, Diana Kelly, and she was telling me the story at Odyssey a couple of years ago, the security conference, and she was giving the example of there was a 200, 300 women-only sub-conference that was happening, and one of her ex-colleagues had just ran into her and told her, hey, Diana, great to see you, can we chat? And she told him, hey, I'm up on a panel right now at this women's conference. Why don't you stay by, and as soon as the panel gets over, we can chat. And she says, so he goes into this senior exec, all women, and he's the only male. And Diana's up on stage with 3 other women panelists, and 45-minute panel gets over, she gets off stage and she connects with him. And she looked at his face and said, I mean, you look like you swallowed a bomb or something, like what's going on, are you okay? He says, now I know what it is to be a minority. So that 45 minutes, Diana was saying, has completely changed his view on what it is and how uncomfortable he was being the only male in a conference dominated by women. And so again, this is like you got to be it to feel it and to change. And I think, I think I'm living this vicariously through all of these conversations and helping kind of understand what it is and be more aware, right? So those are my stories.
Yeah, and I want to take a poll real quick. Out of the 3 of you, daughters? Yes or no? No daughter? Yeah, I know I have a daughter. No, because I find that men that have daughters tend to find a point in time when it clicks for them because they're watching their daughter and they're, because I have a daughter who's amazing in STEM, and so part of my motivation, of course, is to definitely try to make this a better place, for her. And so I was just curious to see if you guys had children, and if you did, if you had girls.
That's interesting. I wanted to say something about that.
Okay.
There is a documentary probably 6 or 7 years ago called Misinformation. Clever title, Misinformation, but MISS, Information. It's done by, I can't remember her first name, last name is Newsom. She's married to Gavin Newsom. She did a documentary about portrayal of women in the media. I think it was 2015, 2016 maybe. Very powerful, still very relevant. And she opened it by talking about, setting it up for her daughter. And in there, she identified fathers of daughters as natural allies and talking to them about the magazines that they read or read and the effect that has. And I thought that was very profound. And I also thought it was giving, fathers who didn't have daughters like an out. Like, oh, well, they're just not gonna, they're not gonna get it. And, and I don't have daughters. I have sons, and it's arguably way more important for me to be paying attention to it. If we're not going to be living, hopefully, in an entirely heteronormative world in the future, but still, that patriarchy is pretty damn strong, not just in the U.S. but in other countries too. And so, it was. I almost sometimes when someone says that, I want to be like, no, don't bring that up, because then the guys that have sons are like, oh yeah, no, I can't relate. Sorry, man. No,
That's not my argument, because you had the former president.
No, I know. I'm telling you, like, the calculation that happens where they're like, oh, I'm not in that group? Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I don't got to worry about it.
Because there are predators out there, and they can, we can list them all, that have daughters that just don't have a good opinion of women, period, right? So that's interesting. So I wanted to talk to you guys just a little bit about, because of course the hour always goes by fast, and I want to give the group a chance to ask questions, but I really want to ask this last question about mentors. So I've often talked to, because of course I'm on stage a lot, I'm out there, and I've had men come to me and ask me essentially, how do we mentor women? How can we become the good guys out there? Because I've heard horror stories too about men that try to take advantage of women if they're mentors. But how do the good guys, the guys that are genuinely trying to be an advocate or an ally or whatever, or a sponsor or whatever the word you're looking to use there, they're afraid of the Me Too movement. They're afraid of reaching out because they don't want to be misinterpreted. Do you guys mentor women? And if so, how do you formulate those types of relationships? I guess, Ashwin, we'll start with you.
You just rolling the dice, and okay, so it stops there.
Yeah, just rolling the dice. Yeah.
So for me, again, it goes back to part of what is my job, right, which ends up in these conversations. Many have already done this with you after conversing with you, right? It is, who do I connect this person to, right? So, and I feel almost like it's not a burden, but it's something that if I don't do, I'm not fulfilling my purpose, right? So I meet about 6 to 8 new people a week, easy, right? And for me, it's all about, okay, so this person can learn from this person and what can, so it's less about me doing the mentorship. It's like, I don't know, call it the Uber connector or something like that, right? But the idea is, how can X be connected to Y? And so for me, that I don't know, it's not even paying it forward, it's just something that I have to do. And if I don't do that, I feel that, hey, my tech cast or my video conversation is incomplete because I did not close the loop, right? So mentorship for me is, because I'll never have all the solutions. I won't completely understand, but if I know, hey, there's some pattern matching over here that I need to connect to, and that kind of ends up becoming the glue logic, right? And then the way I know it's working is when I see these people, hey, you connect. I don't even remember. Like I was talking to Christina, who I connected to you the other day, right, Mary. So I connected Christina to this other woman, and now she's on the board of her nonprofit, right? So, hey, you connected me to her 2 years ago. Did I? Okay, maybe I did, right? So it's one of those things for me that mentorship is really about connecting the dots versus me actually providing any advice.
That's great. I'm rolling the dice. Let's see, Munish, you want to go?
Yeah. So I think about 2 things in terms of mentoring women, and then I have some suggestions of resources. So the first is a few years ago I was on an advisory board of an organization called Women 2.0, which is about women in technology, and they had a male allies committee. And our charge, I asked the founder, I was like, I'm sorry, why do you, like, I'm a guy, why Women 2.0? Like, I'm a supporter on the board, like, are you sure? She was like, yeah, I'm putting together this committee. And our charge was to advise her on how to engage, activate male allies. And so, we listened, we thought about it, we talked, we had honest conversations among ourselves. And in that moment, it was 2017, it was right in the middle of Me Too, James Damore, that memo from Google, all that stuff, that wave. And there is a palpable fear among men to say and do that they would say or do the wrong thing, quote unquote, the wrong thing. And the irony was lost on many that it was like, yep, that's how women feel most of the time. Like in this, it's like they are so hyper aware of their behavior. So that's first thing. Second thing is it came down to there's 2 principles I try and hold in my mind is guidelines. The first is, and this is in general, but I'll tell you where it comes into the gender dynamic. 1, how do we talk about a group of people when they're not present? How do a group of men talk about women when they're not present? How do a group of white people talk about people of color? Do they talk about? How do a group of straight people talk about LGBTQ community? Like, do they talk about it? And then how do they talk about it? So I say that because then the corollary to that is Very simple. Very simple. What if this was a guy? Would I do this? Would I give this person a hug? Would I ask them this question? Would I do this way? And if the answer is yes, great. Cool. But if there's any hesitation where it's like, maybe, that's a no. It's a straight no. It's easy. Super easy. And I coach guys that's the guideline that they should use. And they're like, what if? And I'm like, if you're wondering, just no. Cool. Simple. Super simple. You know, it's like, and sometimes I'll go through the exercise, like, what's the micro behavior you're thinking about right now? Let's talk about all the benefits of that. And now let's talk about all the ways that could be misinterpreted, because you clearly have good intentions. So we'll assume that it's going to be misinterpreted. Let's talk about all the ways it's misinterpreted. That's a lot of effort, right? Why not just find another way? Find another way to express your gratitude, appreciation, kindness, compassion, joy at seeing that person. There's a bunch of other ways to do it. The two resources that I have, there was a Harvard Business Review article that came out in 2016, I think, called "The Men Who Mentor Women," and it puts together really nicely the research even up until that point. And then last year there was a great book called Athena Rising: How and Why Men Mentor Women, or How and Why Men Should Mentor Women. I think I can't remember the exact thing, but the short part of it, like the top line, is there are benefits for both groups. There are benefits for both groups. You know, and when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's lots of cases to be made. You can make a national security case, like you can make the cybersecurity case, you can make a national security case, you can make the business case, you can make the social justice case. You make all of them, but both sides benefit. Both sides really benefit. So I encourage people to look into that if
Thank you so much. Kim, you want to jump in there? You said you mentor women a lot. Let's hear how you make it a success.
Yeah, I guess I'm maybe a little different, cut from a different cloth, because I was never, with all the Me Too stuff, for me it was just normal to treat people equally, so I wasn't worried about reaching out to women and helping them where I could. So I guess I'm a little different than the average guy in that realm. I mean, the women I communicate with, like on LinkedIn and mentor via LinkedIn or email or Zoom calls, typically they're reaching out to me saying, hey, do you know, what should I do? Where should I go in cyber? What should I learn next? Do you know of jobs, et cetera? And kind of to what some of the other gentlemen mentioned is, if I know someone they should connect with, I'll say, hey, reach out to so-and-so, say I sent you, and ask them about this thing specifically, right? This job, or see if they have jobs, or ask them about this certification or this training. So for me, I don't know that I have advice for men other than just present yourself as not a creepo. Don't be creepy, and you're naturally going to attract people, not just women, but people in general that are looking for help, because they'll be able to see you're actually genuine. And I'm saying that because I remember when I went to Black Hat a few years ago before COVID, when we could actually see each other in person, and people were shocked that I was the same as I am on LinkedIn or on a Zoom call, right? People were shocked that I'm authentic. And I'm like, well, this is just me. But I guess a lot of people aren't, right? A lot of people put this persona on social media or even at conferences, and then when they're alone with you, they turn into that creepo, right? And I don't know. For me, just the biggest thing I guess advice I can give men out there is be authentically you. So if you are one of those creepos, at least maybe other creepy people will come to you for mentorship. But if you're not a creepo, like, just don't be awkward about it, I guess, is the easiest way to say it, like the most general way.
Okay, so yeah. I'm going to ask for you guys' advice on what do you tell women who come across a creepo in a professional capacity.
Yeah, so tell someone, right? Like there's a number of women that have opened up on sexual harassment or whatever issues they're having. Put them on blast, right? I've seen a lot of posts like on LinkedIn where you're blurring out the name or something. Please don't do that. Like, it's fine for your post, but send it to one, like someone like myself. Let us kind of take the burden a little bit, and I'm happy to reach out to those guys and say, hey, look, this is not appropriate, right? I've been kicked out.
What if you work? What if they're in your chain? I mean,
doesn't
honestly,
matter. Well, I mean, for me, it doesn't matter, right? So for example, Mary, let's say that you're working a place, somebody's creepy to you that's above you, right? You send that to me, right? Hey, this is what happened. I'm not going to say, oh, well, Mary said. I'm going to say, hey, man, just want to touch base with you on a Zoom call real quick. I've been going around talking to different men in the industry, blah, blah, blah. You got 15 minutes. And then just have a conversation with them and say, hey, I just want to, I know there's some things going on across the industry. Just want to touch base with other men on this topic and present it like that, right? At no point is Mary going to come in the conversation or anything that Mary experienced going to come in the conversation. It's going to be more of this generic thing is happening. And because I'm an advocate for women, I want to get other men's perspective on this generic thing that's happening, right? And get their feedback and just talk it through, because maybe they're, in their mind, right, we're all raised differently. In their mind, it might be okay to approach women like that, right? And I found that to be the case a lot of times. When I speak up to other men, they're like, oh, well, no one ever told me that, right? So the fact that for someone to stay silent, like it's, I know the fear, right? They're in my chain of command. I'm going to get fired or some repercussion. Come to someone that that you can trust. And come to me. I don't care. Come to me. I'm busy sometimes, but come to me. At some point, I'll get to it. And again, I don't have a problem reaching out to those individuals and saying it's a generic thing, and just approaching it that way, so you're not in the mix at all, right? Because you're not the only one that's gone through that. I guarantee
that's hard.
That's gone through that.
Right. Oh, no, you're not. Creepos are creepos, and always. And, usually they buy for your silence by getting you to sign a confidentiality agreement and buy you out. That's usually how corporate America works. But it's hard to tell a young professional who's coming, if she's just in the field, especially to come to Ken or come to somebody else when they're experiencing that particular type of trauma. I even find it difficult to advise women that come to me that say, well, this person did, because of course my answer is different. Me being the protector, me being a, gun carrying former FBI agent, my response is a little bit different. And, I'm always ready to fight, right? So it becomes difficult to advise women, because a lot of times we just take it and we're silent. I mean, any other final thoughts on that? I know we only have a few more minutes to go.
Yeah, I'll jump in really quickly. I think that, Ken, I appreciate that approach. I do. It's compassionate and it is, protects the privacy in many ways. It's totally, I would totally not do that. That's so interesting. Like, it's just interesting to hear a different approach. It's just like, I'm glad there are Kens out there in the world, because I'm a little more where Mary is, where it's like someone experiences a traumatic event and I immediately think about acknowledging that they experienced a traumatic event, just validating and hearing their experience. And I think it's important, as a male voice, for them to hear a male voice validate what they experienced, right, from a gender perspective, number one. Number two, not go into instant response mode, but really make sure that they've, captured, documented, all that kind of stuff, so that they can, if and when they want to revisit it, they have the materials and everything that they need to do that. And then the other piece, and this happened recently, a colleague put me in touch with a woman who is experiencing a tough time at a tech company, is I share my own experience so that they know that they're not alone, and I offer to put them in touch with other men and women who have experienced that, or communities where people talk about this, so that they know that they're not alone, and let them know that their talent is needed and wanted at a lot of other places that know how to treat their people with dignity and respect, and they don't have to stay there. I'm not trying to poach anyone anywhere, but sometimes someone feels trapped, and it's like, what you experienced, is valid. You're talented. You're needed. It's okay. There's a community here. You might not know them yet, but they're here for you. So I think that's my.
Ashwin, did you wanna get in there at all before we?
No, I forget the name of the company, but for me, I think this whole thing we talked about AI briefly, the whole virtual reality, and there are a few companies out there that, again, for me, it's like, hey, if you immerse yourself, if you see what it is the other person has gone through, which is incredibly hard sometimes, but some of these VR companies are actually simulating that entire experience. And I've talked to a few that have come out of it completely out of their mind because they know what it is to be a homeless person, they know what it is to be a LGBTQ, or know what it is to be a young African American woman. So for me, I think that there's opportunity over here to actually use technology for good in this case, and have the perspectives change. Because yeah, I mean, you can come and you can do response, you can be a comforting shoulder, but ultimately I think every single individual needs to experience what it is to be on the other side. I think hopefully that changes.
That's great. And, again, thank you guys so much. Is there any questions? I know we're ultimately at time, but are there anybody out there that have any questions that they want to shoot at the panel before we conclude our call today? I do a countdown. That they're normally quiet, but I want to thank each of you for taking the time out of your day on this Friday to talk to us and to share your thoughts about how to support and be an advocate and being those male feminists that are out there. Ken, I'm going to start pointing people to you to have these difficult conversations with these creepos, because there are a lot of creepos out there. I've had a couple reach out to me on LinkedIn, so there are a couple of creepos out there roaming around in this industry. But thank each and every one of you. Thank you all in the community for attending the call. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. If you are members, remember we can continue this conversation internally on our message boards. But thank you again, Ashwin. Thank you again, Ken. Thank you again, Munish, for being with us today, and I really appreciate it. And you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mary. Take care.
Bye. All right.